What is going on, everybody? I am back today to talk about a movie I have been very excited to watch because multiple people have called it the weirdest film of the year. And if you've been following me for a while, you know weird is my specialty. I love weird, surreal, art house movies. They are my forte. David Lynch is my favorite director. I love movies that really kind of push the boundaries as to what filmmaking can be. And this movie also stars Léa Seydoux, who I believe is one of the greatest working actresses alive right now. Every time I see Léa Seydoux in anything, even if the movie isn't great, she brings so much to the table throughout her entire career. And knowing she was the lead of this movie made me very excited because I love when she can be the focal point. I love when she can really kind of show what makes her such a talented actress. And so I knew virtually nothing about this movie before I went in to watch it. I kind of just blindly went in. I had to wait for it to come to VOD because it didn't hit very many theaters near me. And the movie I'm going to be discussing with you today is The Beast. The Beast is directed by Bertrand Bonello. In the near future, emotions have become a threat. Gabrielle decides to purify her DNA in a machine that will immerse her in her past lives and rid her of any strong feelings. But then she meets Louis, and although he seems dangerous, she feels a powerful connection to him as if she's known him for forever. So I was very excited to watch this movie, hearing a lot of the buzz surrounding it, especially people like, this is a movie that you're gonna love or you're gonna hate, and man did I love this movie. This is some of the wildest shit I have seen in quite some time. It had me on the edge of my seat. It was suspenseful, it was romantic, it was disturbing, it was violent. It had every array of emotion that you can imagine in this 2 hour and 15-minute film. And it also covers a wide array of social commentary that is incredibly poignant, but not so on the nose that it's annoying. It's like really, really well incorporated into the film. And I'm gonna try my best to explain this movie to you today. It is very complex. It jumps all sorts of timelines, but I'm gonna do my best to concisely break it down for you and tell you all my feelings on it. So at the beginning of the film, we are introduced to Gabrielle, played by Léa Seydoux, who at the time, at the beginning of the movie, we see her filming a commercial, and then it hard cuts to her in 1910, and she is in traditional clothing, and we find out a little bit about her life. She is married to this man who is in the doll making industry, and she's a socialite. Everybody in this house loves her. And shortly after, we're introduced to Louis, played by George MacKay, who very, very much has an interest in Gabrielle, and the two of them have very long sequences of dialogue together, and he's really bummed that she got married, and she's like, we've talked about this before, and they're speaking in French throughout the entire beginning of the film, but then they like hard cut to a moment where they're both speaking to each other in English, and it feels very unnatural, and it feels like the dialogue is from a different era, and you're like, what the hell is going on? And so this scene hard cuts to Gabrielle in 2044, which is when the movie is taking place, and we are in a world where artificial intelligence has taken over essentially every job, and they'll essentially assign you a job if they find you capable enough. And Gabrielle is doing this work where she essentially just sits in this chair, gets up and touches this thing and goes back to her seat. And so she goes to this office to interview for this job, and they essentially tell her, well, you can do the job, but the only way you're going to be able to do it is if we can get your DNA purified, which means that she would be devoid of any real emotion. She would become essentially the same as artificial intelligence. And the way you go about this procedure is you have to go into this essentially like tank of like goo water, and they inject you with this stuff, and you have to confront your past lives. You have to go in every single era that you had been alive before and live it out and essentially come to terms with it and feel no emotion surrounding it. And so the film is our character jumping between the current time period, 1910, and 2014, I think is the other time frame, and living out different lives where in every single one of her lives she comes into contact with Louis's character, but he's a completely different person in every world. and some he's more likable, and some he is absolutely despicable. And so the movie is watching our character navigate this world and trying to get this job so that she can find some level of fulfillment in her life. So as I said, this movie is incredibly complex and it's layered, but it is brilliant. For starters, let's just get it out of the way. Léa Seydoux's performance here is phenomenal. I mean, nothing short of just spectacular. The amount that is asked of her in this movie to accomplish is really impressive, and she has low lows and high highs, and the way that she's able to fluctuate between those two emotions is seamless and brilliant. Her performance, my jaw was on the floor through most of the movie, just how incredible she was. I was completely and totally captivated, and any moment she was delivering long monologues. There's this sequence early on where the AI is showing her something from one of her past lives, and she just breaks down completely, and the way that she breaks into tears so naturally, it's just so impressive to me that she's just such an amazing actress, and in this movie there's no exception. I also really want to compliment George MacKay, because every character he plays in this movie is so drastically different, and he's also asked a lot. He also has to speak multiple languages like Léa Seydoux, and it's really cool to see these actors showcase everything that makes both of them very special, and their chemistry is incredible as well. I really love the way their chemistry was depicted, either in the 1910 eras where they're really close, or in 2014 where it's a very strange relationship that I won't dive too heavily into, but they both did such an amazing job. The cinematography and the editing in this movie is fantastic. There's so much attention to detail in each and every frame of this movie. It's shot in multiple different aspect ratios, and it's because of the settings and the environment, and some are meant to feel very wide and free. Some moments are made to feel very claustrophobic and uncomfortable, and the cinematographer knew exactly which lens to choose to really accentuate the overall feeling that you're supposed to feel as an audience member, and I was very impressed with that. The sound design in this movie is very eerie and strange, and also incredibly beautiful in some of the more emotional moments, and whoever did the sound design for this movie did a phenomenal job. And what I love so much about this film is it's covering a wide array of topics. Obviously, artificial intelligence in our society right now is one of the most prevalent conversations that you can be having. AI is being incorporated into almost every facet of life, and it's becoming very complex, and it's entering the film industry, and it's gonna slowly start taking away jobs whether we like it or not, unless people fight back. And I think this movie incorporates it in a way that it's like, well, it's already happened, and this is what it's gonna look like if it already happened, and you're kind of left with a choice. And given this character who feels so isolated and alone, that hasn't found a person or a thing that makes them feel fulfilled. And I think despite the artificial intelligence angle, every person on this planet can feel like they've had a moment where they haven't felt accepted, or they haven't felt like they found a person to live their life with or be around that truly causes them to be fulfilled. And that feeling of emptiness and yearning, it's conveyed in a way here that is so palpable that it really made me emotional in a lot of moments. And I thought that it was just incredible the way that it was depicted. It's also really interesting, they dive really heavily into like incel culture and like toxic masculinity in the 2014 time frame, and like the expectations of men on women, and it's really fascinating the angle it switches to. And I think what makes this movie so great is cutting between all these different time periods. It can cause you to feel a wide array of emotions. And I think like setting the beginning of the film in 1910, there's this like intense romanticism of like just that era, and like everything feels very romantic, and the way that it's shot and the colors that are used, in contrast to the 2014 era where everything feels very bland looking and nasty, and people are kind of ruder to each other, and the expectations of people on one another. It was really interesting from the time jumps. And then in 2044, where everything just feels so cold, like everything's so cold and calculated, and people's interactions with other people, they're just very forced. And I feel like that's really indicative of where our society is going now, because I feel like even I've spoken on this before in multiple reviews, but in a time period where we are supposed to be the most connected we've ever been, we feel incredibly separate. And even though we can put our entire lives on the internet, it feels very hollow and it feels very fake. And the movie just does a brilliant job showcasing that. And there's so much more subtext you can pull, and I feel like on multiple viewings there's probably even more that you can unpack than what I just spelled out here for you now. But I just found myself so emotionally moved and invested in every moment. Léa Seydoux has a moment in the third act, towards the very end of the movie, that is like one of the most impressive I've seen in her entire career as an actress. And this movie has not left my mind since I've watched it. I absolutely adored it. I think that if you're a fan of experimental art house filmmaking or just incredible performance driven movies that might be a little weird and that don't necessarily spell everything out for you, you should definitely check out The Beast if any of that sounds interesting. So have you seen The Beast? Do you love it? Do you hate it? Leave me a comment down below. Let me know what you thought. I thought this movie was amazing. It's one of my favorite movies of the year, and I can't wait to watch it again. As always, if you can like the video and subscribe to the channel, helps me out a lot. Lets me know the type of content you're looking for. I'm always putting out new material and look forward to getting more out for you in the near future. And as always, everyone, thank you so much for watching and have a great rest of your day.